All you.
All right. How's everybody doing out there? I know you guys can't respond, but I'm still going to say hello in the Slack channel. You guys can tell me hello or bye or whatever you want to say. I'd like to thank you guys for being here at my talk, The Mindset of a SwiftUI Developer. This talk was kind of a Twitter idea. A couple people said that I should do something on how you break down designs in SwiftUI. And the more that I researched, I started seeing kind of the spectrum of both sides, the haters and the ones that do like SwiftUI. So let's get to it. So a bit about me. I'm an iOS developer. I've been doing this since I started in 2010, self-teaching myself. I work for a company called FanReach, and we specialize in doing mobile apps for professional sports teams, NHL, CHL, NBA, NFL, and it's kind of something that I have a passion for. I love doing sports stuff. I love doing iOS in general. So most of the excitement you hear in my voice is just because I love what I do and I get to talk about it. I am currently in the process, if you aren't following me on Twitter, of releasing a book called SwiftUI Projects. And thankfully, this is the literally last week of me doing this. I felt like I keep saying that, but it actually is. It's down to like the last 2 to 3%. I've got review chapters to do this weekend, and I've got people reviewing chapters, so it's really down to the very last bit. But it should be out November 10th at the latest, give or take a couple of days. It might come out a little earlier, but as soon as I submit my stuff, they said about a week, and then it'll be done. If you go on my timeline, there are some coupon codes for Pact Publishing's website for a discount. You can get the book, the ebook, and the book for about $26. If you buy just the ebook, it's like $25. So it's a no-brainer. For another $1, you get both. And yeah, maybe you'll see me in person and you can throw it at me. So SwiftUI Projects, just a little bit, is about 6 apps. I do 2 watch apps, 2 iPhone apps, 2 iPad apps. We do design in one chapter. We do development in the other, usually data, CloudKit, core data, APIs, and just a little bit of everything. So you get a little bit of everything. It's a lot of design. So if you're interested in that aspect of it, which I am, then you'll love it. I give design specs. You get to have those. So if you decide you want to do the whole chapter with design specs before you even read the chapter, it's a great way to learn and have fun. So hopefully you guys check it out and let me know what you think. I've been doing some workshops with TrySwift World as well. This is one of them. This was the first one I released, and it was very, very popular. So I decided to take it off of TrySwift and make a full 6-hour course that will give you way more. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure we're seeing the updates of your slides on the screen you're sharing.
Ooh, good call. Okay.
Yeah.
Resume share. Maybe that was it.
That looks better. Yep.
All right.
It is showing only a segment of the screen from what I'm seeing here. There we go.
Let me try new share and then redo.
Yeah, we're seeing the presenter view. There you go.
There we go. Cool.
Awesome. Okay.
Sorry to derail you there. Thanks.
Oh, you're good. I'm used to it. It's cool. Okay, so these are the books, and then we'll move on. Hopefully, you guys can now see. This is the mini course that I have created. Hopefully, to be announced is when this one will come out in the next couple of months. Right now, I've been bombarded with the book, so this is my next project. It'll be about a 6-hour mini course. It'll take you from the very beginning of design, opening a new project, to the very end. I'm looking forward to it. I know I have some people on my timeline that keep asking me when it's coming out, and I'm working on it, and it's coming. So my talk today is just going over the outline. We're going to kind of cover the negativity of SwiftUI. We're going to go over the pros and the cons, and maybe a part of that has to do with the negativity We'll go through the mindset that you have to have when you're dealing with SwiftUI, because once again, if you try to do UIKit and SwiftUI, you're going to be disappointed. And then finally, I'm going to take a design that I did for DeckOfCards, and I'll explain that when we get to it. And I'm going to show you how I break it down into SwiftUI from the SwiftUI perspective. It's going to be a little different than UIKit. It may be similar to UIKit, depends on how you break down designs, but I'm going to do that for you so you understand. So at the end of the talk, if you have questions on something specific, you let me know. But one, no code. I'm just strictly going to just give you slides. Hopefully they'll make you laugh. They'll make you cry. Maybe not cry, but one of those two. And I hope you have a good time. So let's get started. So we're going to take a trip back. We're going to go back. We're just going to keep going back. And oh, no, not that far. We're not going to go back to 1980s, but we're going to go back to this. And this day here, 5 o'clock in the morning, June 5th, 2019. And we're going to go just a little bit farther forward back to the moment SwiftUI was announced at the keynote. And I was fortunate enough to be there. This was my second DeckOfCards, first time in San Jose, and I had a blast. And we ended with Tim Cook telling everyone to enjoy the week. And I go to lunchroom as soon as this is over. Everyone disperses and goes to go get lunch, and this is what I saw. At least from my perspective, people excited. They were like, everyone was talking about SwiftUI. It was probably one of the most talked about topics, and at the time I was at lunch, at least around everyone that I was around. So, but unfortunately, there were these people, the grumpy old men driving back home to their Airbnb, mad because they have to learn something new, unfortunately. And it sucks for them, but it's great for me, and I love it. So it's really shocking to me, the negativity and the assumptions that people are giving SwiftUI by saying this. SwiftUI is an incredibly ambitious project and is going to take several years before it's on par with UIKit and AppKit. And these are the same people, not saying Dave is one of them, but there are tons of people out there that also hate UIKit. So I'm kind of like, you want it on par with UIKit, but for me, there's negatives and positives for everything we do. It's programming. So you always find a way to work with it. But the thing is you can still use UIKit. So I don't really see the negativity towards SwiftUI, but hey, I love it. And I'm going to show you a little bit more. Here's another one. This was recently too. While I agree they don't make it easy on with all of the other transitions, the SwiftUI transition doesn't feel ready for prime time and reminds me of programming from the old System 7.9. Yeah, grumpy old men. And this was the best. To all grumpy old Swift critics, move on, learn it. It won't hurt you. I started coding Objective-C in 1990, contributed to the GNU step, and wrote gazillion lines of Objective-C, and I survived the transition. You will survive it as well. And thank you for my man right here who basically sums it up for me. You need to learn it. If you don't learn it, then that's on you and you'll be behind. So being mad at it or saying it's not ready, it's not this, it's not that, doesn't help. It's not going to help you, but it sure helps me, because the more you're negative and don't learn it, the better I get at it. And then when you have to come looking for me to help you, that's when I laugh. So let's go over the pros and the cons, because again, I admit there are cons, but I also admit that there are pros. So we're going to start with the negative stuff first, the bad things. The cons. All right. So bug fixing is a lot more difficult. And this is definitely the truth. For a really long time, you would get an error in SwiftUI and you would be like, that looks fine to me. And 95% of the time, that wasn't the actual error. It would be something in like 18 lines above that. and it got frustrating and you wanted to punch your screen. But hey, it's a part of learning. You always sometimes have to take a few steps back to go 10 steps forward, and understanding the bugs make you better. When I first started programming and teaching myself, if I messed up on something and it took me an hour to do it, I remembered it. So the next time I saw the bug, I remembered that. And so it does make you grow. It sucks, but that's just the growing pains of being on stuff that's brand new. Errors are sometimes not what it's telling you. Basically the same thing that I just pretty much said, but bug fixing is a lot harder, where you don't really know what to do because there's no resources out there. And here, this is more pertaining to what I just said previously, which is the errors aren't always what they seem. And that part of it is frustrating and it is difficult, but sometimes you just have to go step by step backwards and figure it out. And usually you do, or as my boss always tells me, go take a walk for 10 minutes, you'll come back and you'll figure out whatever it is that you're trying to figure out. The third con: switching from imperative to declarative is not an easy transition. So some people don't even know that right now when you're using UIKit, you're going from imperative coding to declarative coding. And so a lot of people want to make SwiftUI do what UIKit does. And every class I have, I try to tell people to forget you've ever learned UIKit, because when you try to compare it, it helps. Yeah, I get it. It helps, but it also hurts. So go in with an open mind, understand what you need to understand, because auto layout is not going to help you in SwiftUI. And most people don't like it anyways. So why use it in your brain if you don't like it? Again, these are just cons, and I understand them, and it's just the growing pain you have to go through. But again, these are just the cons. We have way more positives in my mind. Thinking in smaller chunks of code takes getting used to. And I think Apple has made this something they brought up at DeckOfCards in 2019, and it's been somewhat lost, where they want you to work in small chunks of code. I had a class where one of the students was like, well, I heard there's a certain number of lines of code you can have and this and that and stacks and all this. And I said, number one, this is not UIKit. This is not where you have to deal with protocols and you have to deal with all these extra bit of code if you move something into another view. It's way easier. So don't stress it. If you think it needs to go into another chunk of code, bring it in the view and move on, because it's going to help you make it a lot easier for your life. If you think you're going to reuse it in a row or in a scroll view, then obviously that's a no-brainer. But sometimes you may not reuse it, but you just need it to clean up your code. And this is something Apple said over and over in 2019. They didn't harp on it this year, but it is something that you should still keep in mind. Small chunks of code, it makes your life easier. Constraints are handled differently. I just spoke on auto layout before. So you have to go from dealing with the way that Apple deals with constraints into now you have to deal with floating per se, or pushing and pulling and doing different things. And so that takes getting used to, understanding that you're using stacks and the stacks control your flow. And that is a little difficult. Like I look at a design now, if I know it's going to be in SwiftUI, and I can see everything that I need to do. I know what stacks I need to use, and that takes getting used to. But if you come into it again trying to copy something you did in UIKit without an open mind, you're going to get stuck, and it's going to get frustrating because you want to try to correlate one with the other. And finally, missing UI elements is one of the big ones everyone likes to bring up. And yes, there are things missing, but guess what? There's programming languages that don't have UI collection view, and they do just fine. I don't know. Maybe it's not something you're used to, but 2 for loops will get you exactly where you're going to go with it. It may not be as efficient, but then that's when you control the data and make sure that it is efficient. Maybe you only display 10 items and then you page it using Combine or using state and observable objects. But again, these are things that you can work through without having a problem. And I feel people harp on what's missing more than what's there for you and what you can do. And the last one, Combine has a learning curve. Now, most programmers are fine with Combine because they've learned this reactive programming in some other language. And so that part of it is maybe a con for some where it's not for others. For me, I never really liked reactive programming. I always thought people used it way too much. And to me, I feel there's a happy medium where you can drive state and interactions with just using @state and observable object. And then if you need way more and you want to do things with an API, or you want to do things with other reactive stuff, you can use Combine. And that to me gives you the best of both worlds without it being in every single bit of your code. A lot of the views are handled for you. A lot of the things you need to do are handled for you. So again, this is a con for some, but to me, once you get past that learning curve, it really becomes a pro. So now let's talk about the pros. And again, I tried to keep it even, but there's still, to me, there's way more pros than there are cons, and that's just how I feel. So we can build most UIs easier. And one of the things that I learned in my book is I didn't use any third-party libraries. I didn't need to use any third-party libraries. I can make really anything I want just by using shapes and graphics. And that to me is great. I don't have to rely on some other library for menus. I get it. Some people are good with design. Some people aren't good with design. But you don't necessarily have to go out and grab a library for every single thing you need, where you can use a lot of SwiftUI and build it yourself and make it reusable. And as SwiftUI grows, this will become easier and easier for you because you'll have stuff you already made. And then they'll keep giving us new things we can add to the API that will allow us to get even better. So match geometry is a perfect example of something that got added that made everyone's life easier. And I foresee that happening as it progresses through, because that's what Apple wants to do. They want to make our lives easier, not harder. And again, the fact that they didn't change the code from SwiftUI 1 to 2 or whatever they want to call it is a perfect sign of Apple watching and learning from Swift. And maybe they don't correlate in the same aspect, but to me, the fact that I didn't have any errors or I didn't have to change any code when I went from SwiftUI to SwiftUI 2 made it so much easier, because now I can just learn what's new and not focus on, okay, all the stuff that changed. And to me, that's great. We can code faster. It's the code's less. It makes it so much easier to create a list than it does to make a collection view. Collection views aren't hard to create. Table views aren't hard to create, but they always take time. And to set those up, you can't really create easy prototype cells, and you can't make table views or collection views work in prototyping, but you can with SwiftUI. And this makes faster code. So I can pretty much see a design and make it work within a day or so, depending on how complex it is, but usually a day. Sorry about that. Again, easier to prototype. I brought this up when I was speaking on other stuff. I can prototype an app without a problem, and that's basically because of the fact that SwiftUI allows you to. You can make dummy data and just show what you're going to show, match the comps, and just like my book, you work on the prototype in one chapter, and the next chapter you just add the data. This to me makes sense because I'm visual. I want to see everything working, and then once I know everything's working, I can then add the data and everything kind of go together. Not everyone works that way, but for me, it's easier and it allows my life to be easier. The next step is a single source of truth. I think this is another big, huge upgrade with SwiftUI, where we can just use one observable object, or you can have multiple, but the single source of truth for a module or a single source of truth of something else, it does make your life easier. You don't have to worry about state as much. All you have to do is just give the view whatever variable you need, and it does what it needs to do. I don't have to do much. And this is great. You can make more interactive apps because of this. In UIKit, it would take you a lot more time and just be more pain in your ass. This I kind of combined into two: interactions and animations are simplified. If you're coming from UIKit, you may be like, yeah, I'm not going to do animations. But honestly, Mark Moykins is out there with books on this, and it does make your life easier. The animations are not hard. There's like a certain pattern you learn, and then once you learn that pattern, you can easily just start adding animations and interactions into your apps. And that's what I think I love the most about SwiftUI is they've simplified animations. They've added match geometry to make animations even better and dynamic and look like you spent hours on it when you probably spent maybe 20 minutes. Team friendly. This code can be shared between designers and developers. Designers, I trained for a week. I trained designers to learn SwiftUI for this specific purpose. They could create the UI and pass it to their team, to the developers to then work on. So if you have a team that's interested in doing SwiftUI and you don't really want to do it, or you don't want to have to do the design part of it, have your team do it. It's not hard. The learning curve is not that bad. And they can jump into the code and learn, and then everyone kind of has it's better of a I'm working for that word. I think you'll work together more knowing that you guys can share code and do designs that are beautiful. And to me, I love having or working with a beautiful design in SwiftUI. And finally, I think the one that probably was the big thing at DeckOfCards, which is real-time preview. And yes, this is probably somewhat of a con, and the fact that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the more that I've worked with it, the more I've realized usually when it doesn't work, it's usually me that's why it's not working, because I create an observable object in the file and then it decides that preview doesn't work. And so I learned that you have to give it you have to pass it that object. So it just, the more you work with SwiftUI, the easier it gets. And again, this is just something that it just takes time and and knowledge, and then you get way more comfortable with this. And then finally, it's native to all platforms as of iOS 14. So last year, Watch was probably the only one that it didn't fully support SwiftUI, and now it does. I had a lot of problems trying to deal with SwiftUI and Watch, and dealing with their WK navigation controllers. So now those are gone. And to me, this makes building Watch apps so much easier. And if you're new, this is probably the best place to go, because watches are a lot more templated and easier. You can't customize watches as much. So if you want to just learn basic stuff, this is where I would go. And it's actually where I start in the book. So let's talk about mindset changes. We've kind of gone through the pros and the cons, and so we all have somewhat of an idea of how those are different. But let's go to see why SwiftUI is a little different and why some people don't want to learn. So we have what UI equals F state, and this is the user interface in SwiftUI is a function of its status. And it means that whenever the view state changes, it will recalculate the property in its view and create a new view. And this is something that we're not used to with UIKit. We're always usually having to react to every single thing that happens, a pull down to refresh. But now I can set up an observable object with the feed. And when the feed has all the data and it's all ready to go, the view updates. And that's, to me, amazing. I don't have to deal with pull to refresh. If I need more data and something happens, again, it's not something I have to go out and do. As long as I have set up the different scenarios that I need it to react to, the view reacts. And that's what's great. But let's go back a little bit and let's understand what UIKit, how we coded in UIKit compared to SwiftUI. So imperative programming is what we dealt with in SwiftUI. And this, the imperative programming is a programming paradigm that uses statements that change a program's state. So in much of the same way that the imperative mood in natural languages expresses commands, and imperative programming consists of commands from the computer to perform, imperative focuses on describing and how to program it operates. The Wikipedia slide that is needed, and then I'm going to give you the Wikipedia version of declarative. In computer science, declarative programming is a programming paradigm, a style of building the structure of elements in the computer program that expresses the logic and the computation without describing its control flow. So once again, what the hell? Like, yeah, that's way too technical. So let's just talk in simple terms. UIKit is imperative programming. It consists of giving explicit commands to change the state of the UI, while SwiftUI's declarative programming consists of describing how you want the UI to behave, letting it do that on its own. And that is a part of the reason why when you come to when you come to SwiftUI, it's different. And so people aren't used to it, and they're used to something they've been doing for 45 years, and now they have to change. And I get it. So earlier I talked about embracing small views, and this is really important because if you try to put everything in one view, I see so many YouTube videos where they stick everything in content view and it's 100 lines of code, and you're like, what the heck? Like, how do you how do you clean that up? How do you know what's going on? Like, literally, it is actually the way Apple showed you, but then Apple showed you how to export those into views. That's the part people keep skipping. So again, embrace small views and it will make your life way more comfortable. So I saw, I'm going to mess up his name, so I'm just going to call him Rambo, and his name is Underskied Inside. And he had a trick to getting comfortable, and it's very similar to mine. So I thought I would share it. He says, I found for myself to get comfortable with SwiftUI was to start making all of my internal tools using the technology instead of using AppKit or UIKit, which I'm already familiar with. This not only makes me more comfortable with SwiftUI, but it also turns the task of developing and maintaining the tools more fun, since I'm learning while making them. And for me, this is what I did in 2019 and 2020. I came up with a design and I used it all week. Now, sometimes something comes out that is a widget or something different. Then I'll spend Monday night working on that design. And so this one, I kind of knew I wanted to add more to it. So I made this design going into the weekend and going from the weekend into Monday, knowing that we were going to get new Swift stuff. And again, sometimes you're going to have UIKit in your head. So sometimes I made something that was maybe more UIKit instead of SwiftUI, but that's where I can go back to the design and tweak. But this is how I basically broke down all of the complex designs and made them work for SwiftUI. So, as I said, you're gonna see how I break things into small views. So we have a roster list, and pretty much to me, this is simple. It's one view that I'm gonna have to create that's gonna get repeated. I have an image on the right-hand side that's overlaying the jersey numbers. So I know I'm going to use ZStack there. And then I'm going to use a clipping mask around the edge so that the head goes over the background. And it's not hard. It may look complicated, but it really isn't hard once you understand. So first thing I'm going to break down is just this list. And then all I have to do is drop it into scroll view and I'm done. So that's pretty much step one for roster, but there's a filter bar at the top. So let's see what that looks like. So it pops up and now I see 3 different sections first thing immediately. And so I already think I'm going to divide these into 3 separate sections. My first one is the roster filter is going to be in its own view, but combined. Then I'm going to take the sort by, bring it in, and then have it as its own view and state so it can toggle between the 3. And then finally, I'm just going to create some custom buttons that I can reuse through the entire app. And now I've taken roster and made maybe 6 to 8 views that I can reuse throughout the rest of the app if I need them. But let's look at schedule. So schedule is a little different. The upcoming games are pretty much the exact same as roster. I basically break down just one of those cells and then reuse it. So that's already pretty much, you can see there. But the top one is where the schedule has a lot of stuff going on. We have a sponsor at the top. We have live game with scores, and then we have players on on each side. So first thing I would do is take the schedule take the score and the live game and time and all that and create a separate view for there. Then the player featured, I would make a view specifically for this, and then I would just have it to where one of these is created, and then I flip the player from right to left with a variable, so either home or away, and then I just pass that .home, .away, and then it knows to push it to the left or to the right. And then here I make a little sub nav that I also use as a separate view, and again the list view gets a separate view. So again, I'm going and I'm seeing this. This is pre-designed. I'm not even doing any code. In my head, I already know what direction I want to go. So when I open up Xcode, I'm not stuck in content view. I'm already breaking these designs down. Now I go to roster detail. Now this one I actually did, and I even published it on Twitter. So the first thing you would think with these tabs is, oh man, how do I do that? There's no way to do that. I don't have a component for that. But honestly, it's two views, really. You have a white tab, and then you have a black tab with the text that changes to white. So I took a toggle, and all I did was I overlaid the image, and then I said toggle on would show white, toggle off would show black. That's it. And then the content below is just a completely separate view that's pushed up, and it makes it look like it's all one component. And instead, all I'm doing is I can then say filter the stats based off of what I tapped on. So in this case, it could be tag 1, 2, or 3, or 0, 1, and 2, or .rushing, .receiving, .fumbles, and then I see the data underneath. And again, breaking all of that down into smaller little chunks makes your life easier because stats gets repeated. All of this stuff can be reused. And then all I did was I took Josh Jacobs, I put it into a H stack, then I rotated it using 3D, and that's it. Like that to me is really easy. The number is really just a Z index or Z stack, and that's how I got that to work. But overall, looking at the design and UIKit, you would have been like going crazy. But honestly, it took me maybe 30 minutes to do this. And most of that time was just figuring out the toggle. And I am going blank on his name right now. I wanted to give him a shout out. He's one of the developers on my timeline actually said you can use toggle. So toggle works really well with accessibility. And then I decided to use it with this, and that's how I got it going. So if you go on my timeline, go down towards the end of June, and you'll see this working, and it literally is barely any code. So that's how I broke it down. But here again, the top view I broke with Josh Jacobs, the image and his number. Then I separated these as just 3 tabs, one active, one inactive, and then I pushed them all together. And then finally I separated the content from the top, and then using state or observable object, I'm able to flip the data that's down at the bottom. So let's look at SwiftUI apps that are in the store right now. So people say it's not ready for production, but clearly that isn't the case. So I have this one here called Sprint-O-Matic. It's a watch app. And thank you to all of those who heard me online and shared links. But this is a watch app done in SwiftUI. So we can see that it is possible. Here's another one called Orbit Timekeeping. And if I'm not mistaken, this one is an app for all devices. So iPhone, iPad, Mac, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw it in the store for Mac. So again, time tracking, all done in SwiftUI. And it's really, it's a cool app. I mean, he even has widgets already done working in SwiftUI as well. So again, these are possible. Next one, DeckOfCards, is also in the App Store right now and currently working. And some of you single people out there that may know OkCupid, they are a big proponent. They even blog about their app and SwiftUI, and I'm pretty confident that theirs is a combination of both. I don't think it's all SwiftUI, and there's nothing wrong with that. My company, we have a UIKit app, and I built our audio player all in SwiftUI. So you can go different routes. It's not something that you have to be tied down to. But again, this is something that I enjoy doing, and I don't see why you shouldn't. Here's some designs that I've done over the course of the last year. So starting when Dub 19 came out, I started doing designs for the book. I've done 6 or 7 designs for the Watch app. I've done a good amount of them for the iPhone app. The pendant lamp app I actually took from the Dribble, and what I did basically was I used that to learn SwiftUI. And that's another thing. If you don't design, you can just go to a site, has an app, copy it, drop it in a sketch, and just kind of measure it out and find out spacing. Who cares about fonts? Just make it work. And that's how you learn. And that's how I grow. When you have a task, it's easier to learn something than if you're just trying to learn SwiftUI. So find a design and work it out, or go to Paul Hudson's site and work out just list view, work out stacks, work out individual things, and then go to the design route. But again, if you don't challenge yourself, you're never going to get past that stage. And it's really not that complicated. It's just more in most people's head than anything else. Finally, we have iPad apps. Here I did 2, and these 2 are actually in the book. One is a shoe POS app, and the other is a sports news app. And again, I learned some things I did like more what UIKit would be, and I had to change the design, and that's fine. But I did a lot of stuff I couldn't do, and that would take me way longer to do if I had done this in UIKit. So today, I kind of covered the negativity of SwiftUI and why you shouldn't listen to them. If you're thinking about getting into SwiftUI, don't hesitate. We have a large resource right now. Donnie Wall is out there with Combine book. That's great. You also have Paul Hudson, who does a ton of stuff, probably cranks out books in his sleep. I still don't know how he does it, but I'm going to find that program and I'm going to copy it and use it. You also have... oh man, so many. I can't even think of them all. So I apologize for not getting all of your names out there. But there's so much. Rambo Codes, he covers a lot of stuff where I learned from CloudKit and how to use it, core data. So there's tons and tons of resources out there. Everybody has a little different take on it, and it's great to learn. I've learned a ton from them. I've learned a ton from Paul. I've learned a ton from Mark. He helped me. Mark helped me with animations. Donnie helped me with learning a lot about Combine. So again, just don't listen to the negativity. You're going to come up with your own thing. Don't get frustrated. It does take a little time. And then I think once you get over that little hump, you'll realize that you're going to enjoy SwiftUI more than you need. So just change your mindset. And again, I broke down a complex design and how I see it. And hopefully that helps the next time you see a layout, you start breaking them into little components, and then you start building the smaller components and then bring them together. And again, it takes a little getting used to, but to me, it makes your life easier, your code cleaner, and a lot of it is reusable. So I like to say thank you. I'm not sure what my time limit is or where I'm supposed to end, but this is my last slide. If you can catch me on Twitter at @thedevme. I am always tweeting about stuff. In particular, it's usually about SwiftUI and Viper. I think I put a tweet the other day about Viper and got some evil lies, but hey, Viper is dope and I like it. So if you don't, that's on you. And you don't have to write the code. I do, so you shouldn't really be all that mad that I'm using it. So anyways, I really appreciate it. And at this time, I guess we're going to go with any questions, and I'm going to go look at the Slack channel. And here
I'm gonna stop recording now, Craig. We do have some questions over here coming in the chat, and I've been moving some of them over to the Slack channel.
Okay.
Do you want to cherry pick some out of the Zoom chat here?
Sure. I don't have the Zoom chat up, so let me find it on my screen. Oh, well, okay. Going back.
Yeah. The first one I've got here was, how long did it take for your designers to learn SwiftUI, especially if they didn't have any coding experience at all?
Meaning me? So,